¿Qué pasa, amigos? My name is Ash, and today I am bringing with me a crap ton of gaming stories from around the universe that I want to share with you on today's episode of Random Gaming News. And if there is a specific story you'd like to tune in for, timestamps will be posted down in the description. But before we jump in, if you like the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out a lot, and hey, it's free. Jumping into this week's massive crop of news, we start with the very disappointing Cyberpunk 2077 delay. Yes, Cyberpunk has yet again been delayed, this time from its mid-November release to December 10th. And this obviously is frustrating a ton of its fans and player base, as the game has delayed in the past and also promised that those would have been the last delays it would ever see. Not to mention, it made multiple posts saying that the game has gone gold, which essentially means that it is completely finished and ready for launch. Clearly, none of that turns out to be true, and I think a lot of it probably has to do with this entire COVID-19 situation, so it's really hard to blame the development team at CD Projekt Red. However, that's exactly what a ton of immature and impatient fans are doing. So if you are one of the people that are sending these disgusting death threats, please do everyone a favor and just fucking stop. Now, adding even more disappointment to this story, it looks like the Cyberpunk delay is actually affecting a couple of other titles. For example, the massive PC game Path of Exile announced that they would be pushing back a major update that they had scheduled for December 11th, so not only are fans mad at Cyberpunk for being delayed, they are also affecting a couple of other titles with this delay. And as a very last minute add-on to this flurry of game delays, we have now seen two other major titles get pushed back into their release window, with FarCry6 and Rainbow Six Quarantine also being delayed, with both getting some very weird and ambiguous new release windows, as their development teams now say that they will be released between April 2021 but before March 2022. So that basically leaves an entire year for the release window, but I think it's kind of safe to say that these games will probably launch in fall of 2021, as major video game titles really don't release over the summer. The big major release windows either happen in the spring, around kind of that February-March window, or in the fall around that September to November window. So obviously this is some more disappointing news, as COVID-19 is clearly having major effects on game development, and this might just be the start of a massive wave of game delays and maybe even cancellations. So that was just a last minute add-on. This literally happened as I was editing this video, so I just wanted to throw that quick little news bit in there. I'm sorry to make this RGN show that much worse, but hey, we're gonna get to good news in just a couple of minutes. And speaking of disappointing news, and I promise we will move on to a couple of exciting stories, we now move on to another disturbing situation out of the 343 and Halo Infinite camp. Just a couple of days ago, Chris Lee, who was the director at 343 and was leading a segment of the Halo Infinite development team, announced that he would be leaving the 343 studios. Now, a lot of people are looking at this a ton of different ways, as of course Halo Infinite was delayed by a full year, just a couple of weeks after it was officially announced, and many people are looking at this as a horrible sign that the entire Halo Infinite development cycle is just cursed. This is the second major piece that they've lost from their studios, added with the delay and the other turmoil that this studio has been going through with this Halo development. All signs point to 343 being in major trouble. And while that may be an obvious statement because hey, they had to delay the full game by an entire year, as I looked into the details, this departure didn't really seem as concerning as I first thought. Diving into some of the behind the scenes details, we actually saw that 343 was reducing Chris Lee's role in the project a few weeks ago. Microsoft brought in Halo veteran Joe Staten to lead the single player campaign, and they brought another senior executive, Pierre Hintz, to run multiplayer, and I surely butchered both of their names, but that's the best I'm gonna do, so let's roll with it. So at the end of the day, the major questions are, is the Halo Infinite development in major trouble? Is there a toxic environment at the 343 studios, or is everything going fine and this is kind of just the growing pains of a new studio trying to release a massive next-gen title? A lot of these questions will most likely be answered as time goes on, and others we might never see an answer. So for now, let's just focus on the next-gen games actually coming out this year and the amazing new next-gen consoles that will be dropping in the next few weeks. And the king of segues does it again, because this leads us perfectly into our next story, and I promised you good news, so here is your daily dose. Over this past week, it was confirmed that every Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One game will be available to play on the Xbox Series X at launch. And when I say every, this pretty much means, yes, every game, with the exception of some Kinect-based games that no one in their right mind would want to play anyway. This is incredible news, as it opens up an amazing and expansive library for all Xbox owners to play immediately at launch. And the most incredible part about this story and about this achievement is the fact that it took the team at Xbox and Microsoft 500,000 hours, yes, 500,000 hours, to playtest and develop all of these games so that they would work on the Xbox Series X at launch. That is just some incredible ingenuity and manpower, and outside of the countless hours of entertainment that these games will bring us on the next generation of consoles, this feat on its own is just absolutely incredible, so shout out to the Xbox and Microsoft team. And our final story of the day ends this RGN show and the week on a very, very high note. This past week, a brand new Nintendo Direct just dropped out of nowhere, bringing with it a ton of amazing announcements, demos, gameplay, and so much more. But let's start with the demo aspect of this Nintendo Direct, as the next Legend of Zelda game, and I'm sure I'll get shit for that because I'm not in the Legend of Zelda world, and they'll probably say, no, this technically isn't a Legend of Zelda game, but anyway, for those of you who aren't super into the Legend of Zelda, I'm gonna call it a Legend of Zelda game. It is called Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and this game dropped a surprise demo, which allows players to play the entire first chapter of the game for free, which also allows players to carry over the progression that they have in the demo towards the full game if they do end up making that purchase. I did play a decent bit of the demo today, and I gotta say I'm pretty hooked on the game. It feels like a really good mix of Breath of the Wild and like a Dynasty Warriors game, where it's just a large-scale slasher game reminiscent of those kind of older Dynasty Warrior games with that Breath of the Wild skin over top. So if you own a Nintendo Switch and are looking for something to fill the gap between now and the next generation of consoles, or even just the release of your next favorite game, this demo and maybe even the full game if you go that far might hit the spot. But anyway, that's not all that was released during this Nintendo Direct. Nintendo also announced for the first time ever for us Western Hemisphere players that we will be able to play cloud versions of Control Ultimate Edition, which dropped today, and Hitman 3 when it launches next year. The final big announcement was the highly anticipated No More Heroes 3, which will be getting ported versions of the first two games from the Nintendo Wii, which is No More Heroes and No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle, which are also available on the Nintendo eShop today, with No More Heroes 3 going to be available on the eShop when it drops in 2021. Anyway, that will do it for this video. Make sure you hit like, click or tap that subscribe button to become the heart of this gaming channel, and be a part of the conversation in the comments below by telling me how you feel about any and all of today's stories. And for more gaming analysis, news, reviews, and opinions, stay here on Ash Heart. And as always, thanks for watching.